More than a month has passed since the Child Protection and Family Service Agency, CPFSA, scandal broke. Jamaicans for Justice and E for Life are two of a few civil society groups calling for updates from the Ministry of Youth and Education. GFJ's Michael Jackson and EFL's Joy Crawford are with us now. Morning, ladies.
Morning,
Welcome
ladies.
to Jamaica.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, man. Miss Joy, let me start with you. What's Eve for Life? What do you guys do, and how are you connected with CPFSA?
Okay, thank you. So E for Life is a non-governmental charity here in Jamaica. We've been around for 15 years. It's just had our anniversary. And we serve a very vulnerable group of Jamaican girls, which would be adolescent mothers who, of course, have had their lives impacted by HIV, childhood sexual violence, of course, unplanned pregnancy. And therefore, we do work heavily with children. We look at families that may have need for protection in terms of child protection from the state. And so the CPFSA has been a partner of ours for the last 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a very important topic for us.
Okay.
Yeah. Boy, I mean, we could talk about what's been happening there, but let's get to the updates, because you're saying it's important for some updates to happen. I can't believe that updates are not happening. So let me ask Michael. Michael, from your perspective, Jamaicans for Justice, what are your expectations?
Thanks again. I think normally when these things happen in the country, we are outraged for a few days, and then the type of justice that we want in terms of accountability, it tends to end with just the termination or resignation of a single person. And what we're saying here is that when you look at the circumstances that led to sexual engagement of our most vulnerable, and I think we have to put in perspective that a number of these children, they went into the system, for lack of a better terminology here, because they were abused within their homes, within their community setting. And in this particular instance, it was institutional failure that led to Mr. Karl Rabansky having access to our young girls. So what we're saying is accountability must move beyond the termination of a single person. We must look on whether or not there were other breaches of the Child Care and Protection Act. Who were these individuals who failed to report? One of the things I want to point out within the Child Care and Protection Act, for example, if you fail to report signs of abuse of a child, it may lead to $500,000 fine or up to 6 months imprisonment.
Right.
In this instance, we must be looking at who were these officers who did not do their duty in ensuring that the institutions, they were adhering to certain criteria. Who gave access to Mr. Rabansky to the young girls? And outside of that, who were these individuals who were obstructing the course of the investigation when the children's advocate was carrying out her duties? So accountability must move beyond an individual, and we must get a sense that real institutional changes are happening finally, because unfortunately, we have been here before.
Yep. Michael, one of the things you guys are asking for is how come no one has been put in that position that Mrs. Gage-Gray was. I heard that there was Dr. Nadine Spence was going to be a interim head of the CPFSA. Yeah. Anything, Gosso? As far as you know?
Nadine is a colleague of ours, but I can take up my WhatsApp and contact and say, hey, Nadine, are you the CEO of CPFSA? That's not accountability. It must come from the ministry to indicate whether or not the position was advertised, what the transparent process included in keeping with the Executive Agencies Act. And if Dr. Spence is that individual who is going to be named as whether the interim or the permanent CEO, the public has a right to that information. We must get a sense that someone is leading the charge with making these changes within the CPFSA.
Sure.
So on your part, I know that it's been difficult trying to get reporting to happen, trying to get women and girls into the system, because already they're saying, you know, if I go into the system, so this has eroded some of that kind of, you know, confidence.
Sure.
So therefore, is it even more important to signal to them that this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to be addressed, so that that confidence doesn't continue to be eroded?
Definitely. So for us, because we're on the ground, we are the users, we are the service users. So since all of this has happened, since February, thereabouts, there are certain things that we have not been able to do. So one, when we are interfacing with CPFSA officers on the ground, there are times when we need to escalate or fast track certain decisions. And the head of the agency would be brought in to collaborate so we can have quick actions.
Yeah.
Because remember, you know, we are
decision has to be taken.
executive. So we don't have that right now. The other thing is, it's like walking into a place for service and you're not, whether it be for a good thing or not so good thing, you say, may I speak to your supervisor? Or may I speak to the person in charge of the entity? And then nobody has an answer. Then you lose confidence in this system. You don't know what to do. So I think it's no mystery that not having someone publicly announced, interim otherwise, who is in charge. Now, this is the Child Protection Services, not just for those in state care, but in our case, for those who are in their homes, who are in their communities, that we require the partnership of the CPFSA. It cannot be left without someone in charge. Would you leave your house without no one in charge?
Yeah.
Mikel, and I'm going to quote, I guess you said this, we also called for a review of the Sexual Offences Act for dialogue around the following recommendations: adding sex offenders from foreign jurisdictions to the local registry. I will stop there. Did we know, when I say we, the people who ought to know, that Mr. Robansky was this kind of person before he came on our shores and got involved with us? Did we know this?
Apparently, the CPFSA didn't know initially, but the matter came to light years before,
2018,
and no one
2018.
acted, which is an entirely different conversation to be had again, that when you have this type of knowledge, how could you not have acted on it? And it leads into one of the recommendations that we made, that when the matter, for example, became known to the Office of the Children's Advocate, the Children's Advocate in this regard would not have even been able by law to carry out her functions by going to the court, for example, and asking the court to issue an order to say, this individual, because he's an offender in another jurisdiction, I am mandating him not to come in contact with our children. We don't have such provision in law. So the court couldn't even have acted.
Yep.
So again, it went back to the institutional arrangement. Ought to have known better to say, this man, he does not meet the type of credible character to be around our children.
Well, that's the reason I asked the question, because if we knew about him before, how him even reach here to the point that we want to go to tell somebody that him shouldn't be here? Exactly. I mean, how him get here in the first place if we knew that before?
To the point that he's in water down by Ochoris with our girls.
That's my point.
That's
I think
my point.
You know, and even one of the provisions under the Child Care and Protection Act that we have been calling for. Remember, sexual grooming is not just face-to-face contact. This man was using online Facebook communication to sexually harass our young girls, allegedly.
Wow.
So we asked ourselves the question, how are we not moving ahead full speed with making sure the Child Care and Protection Act is amended? I think the government ought to demonstrate to the Jamaican people that it is serious about protecting our children. It is serious about dealing with sexual offenses. Joy, you remember that it's from 2018. We have made these recommendations around the SOA and the Child Care Protection Act. And to date, all we hear when these things happen, people come on social media and they lament. I'm sorry, we're going to do better, but we're not seeing them moving with that alacrity. And I know Parliament, they have a lot of work to do, but we're saying that we must prioritize with
Our
protecting our
children. Joy, you wanted to comment?
I want to say something. I was asked how I felt when I heard the news. And my first reaction was that Jamaicans are hypocritical. I am all for us to address this issue with this gentleman. But the lack of policies affect us. Over the years, we have seen Jamaicans in the homes abusing our children. We have seen, we have heard the news, we have heard girls getting pregnant in state care. And the kind of show that we had with this gentleman, I wanted to see the same here in Jamaica. If we can't take care of our own home, We are now asking ourselves to take care of others. So I think there needs to be a serious understanding of what child protection should look like and what the state obligation is. Take care of our own. Take care of everybody, not just this one man, but everybody who we allow to have access to our children in state homes. Where is the policy provision, as you say, to find out who are they? Do they have to present police records? Do we have a system where we run all of the names, man or woman, through the system that they have? These are some things we have answers for. We want to hear
and the
about.
funding arrangements as well, if I may,
Quickly.
because in this particular situation here, there is no policy guiding how much money I'm allowed to take from an external party. And if I take the money, what does that mean that they can just show up in the homes and engage our youngsters? These are some of the things that we have to be dealing with in terms of policy changes, funding arrangements, and how agencies are allowed to enter into some of those contractual obligations.
All right, Michael, we have to go.
Good
Wow.
to see you guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, man, let's hope we will sort this out sooner than later.
Yeah.
Executive Director for Jamaicans for Justice, Michael Jackson, and Director and Co-founder of E4Life, Joy Crawford.
Coming up, a look at her water woes with a civil and water engineer. That one.